Hey guys and gals, this is Mr. Harper. I wanted to go over a few problems with solving equations. So I'm going to make 3 separate videos solving 3 separate problems. But I wanted to go over, just to kind of refresh your mind on how to solve equations and kind of the mindset of doing that. So what you'll notice here, and this is the first thing I look for, or one of the first things, is if I have an x on both sides of the equation, which in this case I don't. I only have an x on the right side. Now if we do have an x on both sides, we do something else here. But the first thing I'm going to do here is combine like terms. And so I would look at 5x and 2x. Those are like terms. And if you don't remember what like terms are, these are like terms because they both have an x. Now if this was 5x squared and this was just 2x, then they wouldn't be like terms. So they have to have the same variable, meaning x, that also has the same exponent. So since they both just have x, they would be like terms. And so then I would just combine those to get 7x. And I'm just going to bring down the rest. And now sometimes you'll have on the first step a parentheses to where you may have to distribute, that sort of thing. So sometimes that's your first step. But generally here, or in this case, I'm going to combine like terms. Now my next step here is going to be to get the variable by itself, so to get x by itself. So here I combined like terms. And I'll say, if you can combine like terms, that should always be your first step. That or distributing. And I'm just going to put kind of abbreviation there. So the first thing you want to do is, if you can, distribute and combine like terms. That's always kind of your first step when you're solving an equation. And sometimes you don't have to do that at all, so you may not even have to do this. That's generally the first thing I do. Now the second thing I look for when I get to this step is what I mentioned before, which is check if x, or in this, it's just the variable, is on both sides. Now the reason I do that is because if there's an x on both sides, I need to move one of them. Okay. Now in this case, we only have an x on the right side. So when I say both sides, let me make sure you understand what I mean by that. So this equal sign sort of separates both sides of the equation. Over here I just have -12, and over here I have 2 plus 7x. So the only place the x is on the right side. So I do not have an x on both sides. Now if I did, I'd have to move one of them, and I'll do another equation where it is on both sides. But now my goal here is to get x by itself. Now this is where a lot of people will begin to make mistakes. A lot of you would know that you would need to subtract 2 and eventually divide by 7, but sometimes people do it in the wrong order. And I'm going to talk about how you know how to do that here in a minute, but I'm actually just going to go ahead and kind of do the steps here. So the first thing I would do here, one thing that's kind of helped some students is to say that I kind of want to move to the other side, what's furthest away from the x. So like here, I don't want to deal with the 7 first, I want to deal with this 2. And since this 2 is being added to this, I'm going to subtract it. So you always, when you move something to the other side, you're doing the opposite. You're kind of undoing what's being done here. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. That would cancel, and I would get -14 here equals 7x. So a lot of students may want to divide by 7 first. Now technically you can do that, but then you'd also have to divide 2 by 7. So there's a general rule. When you add or subtract something to both sides, you only have to add it and subtract it to its like term. So here I subtracted 2, canceled. Here I subtracted 2 from this because these are like terms. If they're not like terms, you just put them next to each other. But if I divide or multiply both sides by something, I have to do it to everything. So I could divide by 7 here, but then I'd also have to divide this by 7 and then give me 2/7, and we don't want to do that. Okay. But anyway, now here, this is 7 times x. So there's really multiplication here. And so to move the 7, or to undo the 7, we would divide by 7. So in this case, these simplify is, I guess, the appropriate word. So x equals -2. And what I would also recommend anytime you're solving an equation is make sure you check your answer. And I forgot to write down the step here. But the third thing you want to do is isolate, which just means get by itself, x. And that's going to involve a lot of steps. But for me, these are kind of your 3 steps here. There's things in between them. So there are times in here that you'll combine like terms. So it's not just only in the first place. Sometimes you'll distribute first and you'll realize you have to combine like terms, and you'll do that then. Okay, but this is generally kind of the process that I think about when I'm solving an equation. So in the next video, I'm going to actually kind of explain how do you know which one to do first. There's a reason for this, and I'll kind of go through that.